This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shegerian, and I'm so honored to have with us, I believe, our first brother-sister team ever. It's the Boymans. It's Jody Boyman and Todd Boyman, the founders of Hungry Planet Foods. Welcome to the Impact Podcast.
John, thanks to be with you. Thank you.
Well, this is really going to be a great and exciting broadcast. I love your food, as my listeners already know. I'm a vegan and a vegetarian, been so for years. These are your products that I ate last night. I've eaten them before last night, but these are some specific ones I just had last night. They are delicious, and we're going to be talking about them. But before we get talking about how you started Hungry Planet Foods and what you're doing there, share a little bit each of your backgrounds. Jody, you go first.
Yeah, so we grew up in St. Louis, Missouri in the 60s and the 70s. And, speaking for myself, I was always an animal lover and always, big into environmental concerns and all of that. And, it became clear to me from a very young age that the food that we eat has sort of unintended consequences for our health, and the environment and the animals. And so I've always believed that our daily food choices are sort of a vote for the world we want to inhabit and future generations will inherit. And so, I announced to my parents that I was going to be plant-based from a very young age. I think it was 11 or 12, and that caused great consternation. And eventually both my siblings, followed along with that, my brother and our younger sister. And so it's just been this journey for me, as I know it has been for you, for many, many, many years. But how exciting that it's sort of reaching this critical mass now, and that we have all these delicious and nutritious foods to eat, particularly all these meats that people can just swap in and have, with their regular recipes. So that's my background. It all started in St. Louis, Missouri, which is where our company is founded and where we have most of our team is there. But it's been quite the journey. It's been really fun.
And Jody, the options that we had 40-something years ago, and I grew up in New York City, the options we had in New York City and in Missouri were like so limited, right? It was crazy.
It was terrible. You had to do soy milk from you had to mix it with water and then cool it. And it tasted like terrible. Yeah, only long-haired hippie freaks went to the health food store back then. Now we got Erewhon and all that out here, and people are actively seeking these alternatives. So yeah, the times have changed for sure.
Todd, how about you? Share a little bit about your journey in leading up to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, so maybe an inside story here on Jody to fill out her backstory a little bit. And it really leads to kind of ultimately kind of why I also, kind of chose to eat and live this way is, Jody and our younger sister, Kim, when my mom would bring out our beautiful dinners, they would look at it and say, "Hey, Mom, what did this used to be?" Right. And that was in there when they're in grade school. So, they were both admired to really kind of interrogate what was on the plate. And then, you get these heavy down rains, pours in the Midwest, and the earthworms start crawling out on the pavement. And, Jody and Kim are out there moving them all back onto the dirt, right? So both of them had a deep, deep connection to, all living things, and ultimately really connecting the dots in terms of how our food choices directly impact our human health, planetary health, and the well-being of animals. And I don't think you can help but to grow up in a family like that and be impacted. So they both have been, plant-based for 4 decades. It took me about a decade longer than them to kind of let it sink in. So I'm a slow learner in this family. So it's been a little over 35 years, but I eventually got it because even 35 years ago, right, the data was compelling. I mean, today it's absolutely overwhelming. So anyone who wants to understand why you might choose to eat differently, the data is all there. So that's really, for me, where it started as well, was with an older and a younger sister who patiently brought me along on that journey until I wised up and said, yeah, this probably makes sense for a whole infinite number of ideas.
When people ask me why plant-based, and I say, listen, this is not my opinion, it's just the science. So you either can follow the science or you don't have to follow the science, but it's just what it is.
No, it is, right? And people will say, why do you believe that? It's like, well, actually, it's not a belief, it's an understanding, right? It's an understanding of the science. And a lot of people take affront at that, but the science is overwhelming. And whether people do it for selfish reasons or for planetary reasons, or as they understand what's going on with animal agriculture, any one of those three is pretty compelling. At the end of the day, it's about delicious food. John, you made that point about how difficult it was in those early days to eat plant-based. And the data in the United States shows that at any one time, and this has been true for decades, maybe 5% of the population wants to eat vegan or vegetarian, but there's an 80% churn over a 3-year time period, meaning that over 3 years, 80% of those people wash out because historically it is so difficult to get really delicious food and an easy on-ramp. And that's one of the problems that we're solving with Hungry Planet.
When did you come together as entrepreneurs besides siblings and say, aha, there is a huge void in the marketplace. Let's come together and put a company together to fill that void?
Yeah, well, so probably 25 years ago, some of the first veggie burgers were coming on the market. And John, you probably remember that as well, right? It's like you could finally go out to eat with your friends and you're like, okay, well, I'll take that because finally it's not just steamed vegetables, right? And so that was a eureka moment, I think, for all of us. And then it was probably close to 20 years ago where Jody and I and some like-minded friends really started to realize that we could spend a lot of time, effort, money, trying to educate people as to why they might want to eat differently. But that really doesn't work. And that's when the light started to dawn on us that let's figure out how to give people what they love to eat. And so that was in the early 2000s. Before anyone was talking about this, it was, people love to eat meat. There's nothing wrong with loving the taste and the texture of that. So let's figure out whether we can replicate that. So that started in the early 2000s. And it was just a very patient investment with patient capital, not outside money. There was no market for it, but there also weren't outside investors saying, hurry up and get something to market. So that's really where it started. And it also started by looking at it from a global perspective. Jody and I have grown up internationally. I've always done business in the tech world that I was in before, doing business globally. And when you look at the conventional meat industry globally, it's about a $2 trillion market. And the most predominant meat is pork, and then chicken, and then beef, and then lamb, and others. And so we just, thought it through and said, let's figure this out. Can we come up with basically a platform, kind of like software in terms of the design thinking? And let's see if we can replicate all these meats, the taste and the texture. Let's also make sure that we build into it a superior nutritional profile. And then let's also make sure that it handles, stores, prepares, and cooks like conventional meat. So that was kind of the vision that we started off with close to 20 years ago with some like-minded individuals, and patiently worked on it really as just a passion project. And then really over the past 8 years or so, it was clear that the food was fantastic. And let's start figuring out when is the market ready for this, and let's scale up the business. So it's been a long journey with us and other members of our team.
Yeah.
And for our listeners and viewers out there that want to find Todd and Jody and their great products and find out where they can also buy them, please go to www.hungryplanetfoods.com. Jody, talk a little bit about where you are right now, because as I shared, and I want to show these, I've had a lot of plant-based food. I chase it down, whatever city I'm in. Last week I was in New York, Minneapolis, Detroit, and back to LA. And so I'm constantly looking for more options, more alternatives, see what the latest and greatest is. Thai meatballs, never had plant-based. These were absolutely delicious. Italian sausage meatballs. I've had a vegan Italian sausage, never Italian sausage meatballs. These tremendous. And since I'm not a big crab person to start with, never was, I had two of these last night. Amazing, just delicious. Plus your chicken patties, I had the fried chicken patties also. I don't know what I did with that. Somehow I brought it with me and I lost it en route in my car or something. But your products are just, all of them, are just outstanding, delicious, easy to digest. And really, honestly, my final tell on anything I eat, given that I'm 58 now, is how I sleep that night. If the food disrupts my sleep at all, then I know, wait a second, it tasted great. And I'll tell you, I slept like a baby. So your food is not only clean and delicious, but it's just absolutely on point. How did you 20 years, it doesn't matter how long a journey is, when you get it right, that's the magic is happening. So where are you now? And where do you both want to go in this wonderful journey and evolution?
Well, as Todd said, we've been really patient, right? And we have a super big vision, right? That this be a global company, because people need variety everywhere in the world. And people say, what's your hero product? And I don't even like the word product. I like to say meat. It is meat from plants, right? What's your hero product? It's not beef and burgers. A lot of people are doing that. That's great. But, as a lifetime vegan, pretty much, I'm kind of tired of beef and burgers. I want everything else so that I can eat pork and crab and chicken and all these different form factors. So we were launching into food service right about the time that COVID hit. And as you know, food service sort of fell off a cliff. So we quickly regrouped. We're a very nimble company. And we said, okay, people are still hungry. They're just hungry at home. So let's get this food to them at home. And so we moved forward our plans by about 24 months so that we can include now 17 retail items, including 3 ready-to-heat full meals, which you haven't seen yet, Salisbury steak and chicken piccata, and it comes with smashed potatoes and green beans, and you just heat it up and you have a complete meal that is low in fat, low in sodium, high in fiber, really high in protein, doesn't involve any animals at all. So you ask, where are we going? Now we're back into food service, right? Because everything is starting to settle down a little bit with COVID. So our food service channel is firing like crazy. We're on shelf at all 362 Sprouts grocery stores as of this week. You can get all of our products there. We're in lots of Albertsons. We're in Lazy Acres. If you go on our website, we have a Find Us page, and it tells you all the restaurants and all the places where you can get our great foods. And we're also available through e-com, right? We're on Amazon, we're on Costco.com. We're available for order on our own website. If you don't want to order a huge amount of food to start, that's a good place to kind of taste a few options. But yeah, I mean, our strength is our diversity, and it's also our nutritional profile. We have about half the calories, a fraction of the fat, no saturated fat compared to others in this category, and certainly then compared to conventional meats.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Todd, I know both of you have international experience living abroad and have, just a global citizen mindset. This is going to be a global company, right? Because the world is ready for plant-based products, the kind of products that you have.
Yeah, John, no question about it. I mean, the transformation that is going on right now is global, and it's happening rapidly. We've actually been selling our products in Australia for about 3 years as part of a soft launch. We've been doing products in Singapore for about a year. We have boots on the ground in the Middle East, and we'll be launching there soon. And so, as you indicated, we really did start with a global vision of what's the opportunity and what's the problem. And you can't address climate change. You can't address food scarcity. You can't address all these issues if you're just thinking domestically. You really have to be thinking globally and define that opportunity, that problem globally, and then go after it. So that is absolutely what we're doing. And it really stretched us from the very first day to define this opportunity in a different way. There's this thought that how you define a problem is really going to dictate where you end up, right? If you define the problem as beef and burgers, that's going to take you down one pathway. If you define it as every type of animal protein, because they all impact human health, planetary health, and animal well-being, and you look at through a culinary lens, that's going to lead you to a very different solution. So your comment about discovering our foods for the first time, and then it was like, well, wait a second, no one else is doing this, is because really no one else set off with the vision that we set off with. And by doing that, we've been chef crafted from day one, because if food doesn't taste great, right, John, you would have been like, okay, you know what, this food isn't interesting. If it doesn't digest well, not a good thing. So when you're chef crafted, you set the bar at a different level. And then when you think about it globally, you're thinking about not just the meat proteins that cultures around the world consume, but you're also thinking about how they prepare it. Is it a kebab? Is it a roast? How is it being prepared? And if your meat can't translate into all those cuisines, you're pigeonholed into one or two parts of that solution and not the all-encompassing solution that's required. So, our team is led by an amazing culinarian, Chef Ron DeSantis, who's a certified master chef, of whom there are only 62 out there, right? So that's the highest designation you can have. And every day, his mantra to the whole team is, it's the food, stupid, right? It's gotta taste great. And so while we have a lot of interesting science that undergirds what we do, it's the food, stupid. And if the food isn't great, it doesn't get released. And we've had the benefit of honestly working on this longer than anyone else on the planet. So we have had iteration after iteration after iteration that when it was time to launch it, we don't then, later say, oops, sorry, we kind of apologize for that. Let's give you a different version. The first version should be spectacular. And, I think based on your experience, you're seeing that we got it right across all these protein types.
The taste was incredible. And, I was blown away. Like I said, I'm not a big crab person. I couldn't even tell the difference between your crab cake and what is known as a traditional crab cake made out of regular crab. It was that good. Just fantastic on every level. All your products were just incredible. Now the chef is in St. Louis, Missouri with you? Is that
So we have a fairly large culinary team at this point. Our chief culinary officer, Ron, is in New York, but he's back and forth regularly so he can work with the culinary community in New York. He's on the West Coast regularly, and he's in St. Louis. So his home, quite frankly, is an airplane. He's in Singapore. He's all over the place.
I know that works. I know how that works.
John, your point about the crab is interesting. We had an opportunity to serve a range of our meats to one of the largest meat companies on the planet about 3 years ago. And it was really before we'd taken the covers off of everything that we were doing. And it was an opportunity to present our foods without it being revealed in advance that they were all eating our meats. So it was an annual banquet of 100 of the top executives and their significant others. And our food was being served as the appetizer without it being revealed it was plant-based. Wow. And when they all sat down to have their main meal, and they're being walked through what the main meal was going to be, the chef said, well, how did you all like the appetizers? Round of applause, the best we've ever had in all the years of this banquet. And then he said, well, just so you know, those were all plant-based, dead silence, 200 pairs of eyes, looking up, and then a round of applause of well played. So when you can do that and have people who really know meat not know that they aren't eating conventional meat, but they're eating meat made directly from plants without the animal intermediary, you feel like, okay, we're probably ready to now launch this for everybody to enjoy.
It's so funny, guys. People want to look good. Looking good is part of the vanity Instagram world that we live in and things of that such, and they're buying all sorts of stuff to put on their body. The truth is, I'm not giving away any secrets, but I know we had a lovely discussion prior to filming this, and I know your ages, and both of you look at least 10 years younger than you are. So if people understood, if people understood that if they put just cleaner products into their body when they eat, they don't have to put all this extra stuff on the exterior to look good. Both of you look unbelievably amazing, not only healthy, but extraordinarily young. And I think that's part of the messaging here. Also part of the messaging I always find is somehow, and Jody, you could go into this, but you're both evangelists for plant-based eating. I mean, somehow people along the way who are vegan or plant-based feel that it's a ideological movement it's all or nothing, but that's so untrue. And you guys have created products that can be enjoyed and people can eat whatever they want during the day and come home and have a amazing vegan meal or a plant-based meal or a plant-based lunch and still do whatever they want during the rest of the day. And never miss anything from a taste perspective.
Well, that's it. We realized early on that if we were really trying to move the needle and our mission to bend the curve on personal and planetary health, it's not about the vegans and the vegetarians out there. I love them. They're my peeps, but I want my food to be consumed by the 99% of other people on the planet who are starting to wake up about what's going on, right? Environmentally and all of that. And they're looking for options. And they don't want to be asked to eat wildly different foods. They don't want to have lentil burgers. They want a beef burger or a lamb burger. We have phenomenal lamb that you smell wafting down the hall. It's too realistic for me, but people who love lamb say it's indistinguishable. They want to eat foods that are familiar to them, but are better for them and their families and the earth. We are passing along this earth to our children. All of us on this call each have 2 children. We are passing this earth along to them, and we are not living sustainably. How is it that we somehow manage to feed almost 8 trillion animals every year, or billion animals every year, but we can't feed 8 billion human beings? That's a travesty. We're doing something wrong there, right? And there's all of these billions and billions of animals that are caught up in this food system. And we just want to disintermediate that. We want to just say, we make meat directly from plants. If you can't taste the difference and it's better for you and the planet and the animals, why wouldn't you? Once a day, once a week, once a month, just lean into it and try it. Open your mind. And we find people come back over and over again and are so thankful. They're like, I know I should be doing this, but I just, and you make it easy for me. And that's what fuels me every day. I want to be the easy go-to, delicious, nutritious, solution. In families where, by the way, and you probably see this, kids were coming home from college during COVID and they're like, Mom, Dad, I'm vegan. And they're like, oh my God, how am I going to feed you? Well, it's easy, right? You just make a lasagna with Hungry Planet and everybody around the table can eat it and feel satisfied. And there's no questions asked. And if you don't say anything, nobody even knows, right? So that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
No, for our listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Jody Boyman and Todd Boyman with us, a brother-sister entrepreneurial powerhouse team. They're the founders of Hungry Planet Foods. You can find them and their great products at www.hungryplanetfoods.com. Todd, talk a little bit about, you and your sister have been doing this partnership, entrepreneurship thing now for almost 20 years, as you've said. But diversity, inclusivity is becoming a bigger deal now. Just in 24, 36 months, it's become a major social issue. I'm partners with my wife, who's right over there, and we've been together almost 40 years. So I understand the value of diversity. How does it make you a better entrepreneurial team and a better company, given the diversity of views that you have as not only brother and sister, but male, female, and other points of view that you bring that are both aligned, but also diverse at the same time?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to think through. I think when you look at the food systems and you look at the culture of food and you see how diverse our food desires are around the world, if you want any chance of figuring out how to provide those foods, you've got to design and architect an organization, a company that reflects the rest of the world, right? You can't just have people just like you. And so to that end, we've got virtually no litmus test for joining our company. We actually don't go look for people who are plant-based, right? I mean, that's another form of a litmus test. And people might think, well, does everyone who work there be plant-based? By intention, not, particularly among our culinary team, because what we want to do is we want to have our first principles questioned on an everyday basis. Because when we do that and we look at the science and we look at the arguments for and against any decision we might be making, it makes us make better decisions to understand what are the primary, secondary, tertiary impacts of that decision, and making sure that they will scale and that they will meet needs globally. So if you're looking to develop food that works not just for this amazingly diverse community that we have here in the United States, but then is tailored specifically for the Middle East, or a very diverse community like Singapore, or in China, or in Japan, or Korea, or Europe, you need to have that. So I think the issue of diversity was baked into what we did from day one, understanding that without that, there's no way we could be successful, and there's no way that we could achieve the objective and meet our mission, which, as Jody said, is to bend the curve on personal and planetary health. The only way you can do that is to get all the voices in there with an equal seat at the table, have those good, healthy discussions, and then make decisions and move forward.
You know, Jody, reverse logistics is always an issue for any industry. And since you already have so many of these recipes down and the taste profiles down unbelievably, are you able to contract manufacture your products where you want to be in terms of not only domestically, in terms of a reverse logistics distribution basis, but also, as Todd was just talking about, Middle East, Singapore, China, India, all either already in motion or already happening? Are you able to then contract manufacture in different parts of the world as well?
So it's a very good question, and it's an ongoing process, right? Especially in the world of COVID.
Right.
But we have a really nice, broad, diverse network of places where we produce our food, different geographies and all of that. So we've got redundancies, and we do everything, from raw to raw formed to pre-cooked to ready to heat. So, unlike other companies that are doing one of those things, we're doing all four. We're playing three-dimensional chess, and we're doing it in food service and retail and e-com and now globally, right? So we do have phenomenal partners, and we feel very optimistic that all the pieces will come together as they need as we expand in these other markets. And I don't think that will be a hurdle. We're getting some really great traction in some wonderful geographies where we want to make a difference.
Todd, to democratize your products, which deserve to be democratized, again, for our listeners out there, hungryplanetfoods.com, you can find all 17 of their products, and where they're being sold right now takes capital. How are you both approaching the word capital to go democratize your products, both nationally and also obviously internationally?
Yeah, John, we've had the benefit of working on this for so long and being self-funded that we could afford to be patient to get it right and to de-risk the model that we ultimately took to market. When you kind of take a look at this space, most people understand that there's a huge amount of risk just in the early R&D stage of just trying to figure out one plant-based protein, let alone 100%. 9 different types. We had the opportunity to do all that on our own dime with a collection of insiders, if you will, right? Who weren't interested in saying let's rush something out. So by doing that first before we went out to talk to the capital markets, gave us a huge advantage to be very selective in who we partnered with, how much we brought in, and when we brought it in. So our capital needs haven't been kind of in the same ballpark as others because we've done all the R&D. And our capital needs were really about scaling what was already proven.
Right.
And so we've been able to bring in some phenomenal partners, which we brought in at the beginning of this year. We did a raise that we brought in 25 million. We had people wanting to write checks much larger, but we really didn't know how we would use that wisely. And too much money actually can lead you to make really poor decisions.
Agreed.
So we brought in the amount that we wanted to bring in, and rapidly been further building out that team, expanding the geographic reach, and further building out a lot of our social media assets to get the words out there, in addition to our website of hungryplanetfoods.com, where when people go there, we have all types of recipes. We've got videos of how to use the food. Our chefs are making it very easy for people to onboard, whether they're in the food service area or consumers. But then we also have channels, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Pinterest, on Facebook, all at Hungry Planet Foods, where consumers can really discover what we're doing. And so we found that we've been able to do this in a way that is smart. We believe that the timing is right, that we've made the right decisions at the right time. And we've surrounded ourselves with people who have been absolutely aligned with the mission from day one and have let us go at the pace that we thought was the right pace to introduce these foods.
You talk about building a team. You guys are a great team. Obviously, you already have so much of this down. Jody, how do you guys? I know you probably do a little bit of everything every day, but how do you, generally speaking, divide and conquer to go? Because this is a big idea. This isn't just a nice little business, domestic business, even regional business. This is truly going to be a big international company. What's the division of labor typically?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that we did almost everything and we wore all the hats in the company, right? I mean, that's just the nature of a startup. We were working 100-hour weeks. We were, as things got rolling and as we saw that the time was coming and we were perfecting and ready to launch, we were working, we still are, but crazy hours, right? But the key is to surround yourself with people who are really good at what they do, and just invite them into this very dynamic community that we're developing. We've grown quickly and we just have the best team and everybody communicates well. We're on Slack channels all day long. We got emails and Google Drives and everything, but we let the people who are really good at what they do what they do, in terms of the operations. But I personally am plugged in every day to sales, marketing, and design. Those three areas, I have my fingers all over all of that. I was the original salesperson at this company, and I've never sold anything in my life before I started selling Hungry Planet meat. I had other careers as a wildlife photographer and a clinical psychologist, and I was like, oh, but I could sell meat. Sure, I can sell meat. So off I went. Todd has more of a sales background, but so that's where it is. And Todd really, as the CEO, oversees everything. And the commercial side is really important to him too, but also the operations side, which is because we're playing three-dimensional chess, right. Has its challenges, but it's so exciting because we're able to fire on all of these cylinders.
Todd, how big are you now? Like in terms of I don't want revenues or anything like that, but and how many people are full-time employees now?
Yeah, so we've built a team of about 40 people right now. I mean, it's flexing up every single day. Right. So we've built just a phenomenal team here in St. Louis where we're headquartered, but we have individuals, again, around the world who are a part of the team as we start preparing various markets for launch. And I think what everyone feels energized about as they come in and they really deeply understand the mission of the business, and they understand how what we're doing is making a very tangible impact, that energy just drives that team. And I had someone point out to me recently that with a team of, call it 40 people, we have more people focused on kind of this ESG category of making a change, right? So environmental, social governance, than some of the largest, multi-billion-dollar food companies on the planet who might have one person who's assigned to that to figure it out. Here we have virtually every member of our team focused on the exact center of how do you make the world a better place by building a sustainable business to make a difference. And so when they said that, it has to bring a smile to your face, and you're thinking, wow, you're punching above your weight when you look at it through that lens and say, yeah, 40 people at a massive multi-billion-dollar food company doesn't seem like that many, but everybody is absolutely focused on this mission and on making a difference. That's really, really satisfying.
So interesting. I by the way, I agree with you tremendously. And there's no greater trend than ESG that's not only here, but it's here to stay.
Yeah.
And that I think is going to be tremendously beneficial. One of the other anecdotal trends that I'm seeing, and I want to know, have you both seen this? And are you also, and obviously if you have, do you believe that your brand is going to be a big beneficiary? Is I have friends that are doctors, and they're not only MDs, but they're holistic doctors as well. And I go to them. I've been going to them for many, many years, and they both tell me the same thing. One of them is in his 40s, the other one is in his 70s, and they both tell me that their business, as we come out of COVID, has nearly doubled because people's interest in health and wellness now and proactive instead of reactive medicine and proactive behavior is greater than ever before. And if that anecdotal information is true, that has to be a tremendous windfall to your mission.
But we have always felt that food is medicine, and our younger sister is a medical doctor and has been for about 35 years. And, she uses her plant-based learnings every day with her patients. And like you, I have many, many friends who are doctors and who are, holistic medicine and all of that. And yeah, I think that is one of the silver linings of COVID, right? I mean, people did say, okay, what can I do proactively for myself to eat cleaner, to eat better so that I can protect myself against, this virus? And, Hungry Planet's a great option for that.
Right. This is your show. This is all about both of you. Any last thoughts or words before we say goodbye for today? But it's not going to be the last time we talk, because I'm going to have you back on to continue to share your great journey. Any final thoughts that either one of you would like to share with our audience today?
Well, John, I first of all, thank you for having us on the show. Wonderful to meet you. And we're delighted to be able to share with people who are interested in learning about this category. And at Hungry Planet, our focus truly is to provide simply authentically delicious meats made directly from plants that span every meat protein type, are available in every cuisine that you can imagine, that you can buy these products as grounds, and you can make them as a substitution in any of your existing favorite recipes, or you can get the pre-cooked items. And you can know that with Hungry Planet, we are always going to consistently deliver authentically delicious food that is demonstrably better for you. We don't believe it's appropriate to have the halo of being plant-based without delivering on the promise of what plant-based should mean, which is better for you, as you were talking about here, the health elements of it. And so our commitment as a brand is to make sure that the food is delicious. It will work in any cuisine that is demonstrably better for you, and that we are absolutely focused on making a difference wherever possible. So to any listeners out there who are working to make a difference, we would love to connect with you, whether it's through our website at hungryplanetfoods.com or on any of the social media channels where it's also Hungry Planet Foods. We would love to enter into that discussion, share our foods with you, and just expand that conversation to help drive positive change. So again, thank you for letting us be here with you. It's a pleasure. Love what you're doing to help share important ideas with people who are wanting to learn more. So thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you both for, again, hungryplanetfoods.com. I've eaten their products. They're delicious. Go to their website, find out where you live, where you can buy their great foods, change your mind, change the planet. Thank you both for making the world a better place, a more sustainable place. And that's why you both were invited on the Impact Podcast today. I'm going to have you back on because I can't wait to see your great products democratized across the planet. Todd and Jody, thanks so much.
It was great to meet with you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by the Marketing Masters. The Marketing Masters is a boutique marketing agency offering website development and digital marketing services to small and medium businesses across America. For more information on how they can help you grow your business online, please visit themarketingmasters.com.